I never have one of these.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome
I may
to
go.
welcome to the December 4th Human Relations Committee
Somebody
meeting.
open it for me.
Well, I'll call this meeting to order. Just a reminder that we have agendas in the front of the room as well as online for y'all to access. I will now ask the Principal Management Analyst to take attendance by roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Committee Member Lester. Here. Committee Member McDonald. Committee Member Smith. Here. Committee Member Sylvester is absent. Committee Member Webb is absent. Vice Chair Chapel. Here. And Chair Plicon.
Here. Thank you. Moving on to item 3, minutes approval. The minutes for the November 6th, 2025 regular meeting have been delivered to the committee members and posted on the City Hall bulletin board. If there are no corrections or additions, a motion is in order to approve these minutes. Do I have a
I
motion?
move we approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. All petitions. Thank you. Moving along to item 4, oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes to make their comments. State law prohibits the committee from acting on non-agenda items. For those attending the meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function or press *9 on your phone to make a comment on any item not on the agenda. The committee will now receive in-person comments. Seeing none, any virtual?
Sorry, I was trying to prep the presentation. Here and no.
All right, perfect. Moving along to item 5, unfinished business. We'll talk about the Civic Participation Ad Hoc Committee. The Civic Participation Ad Hoc Committee will present an oral update. No action will be taken on this item.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chair. Good evening, everyone. The Civic Participation Ad Hoc Committee is still working on distributing our survey far and wide amongst Mountain View residents, getting feedback on how the city can better reach them. And also gathering information on positive experiences they've had with the city and what has encouraged them in the past to specifically participate, if at all. I believe tomorrow we are meeting as an ad hoc committee to take a look at the data that we've collected so far. And then we're from there going to take the data that we collected initially via interviews and I think find a way to measure it with this data that we're getting from the surveys to eventually come back to the committee with that information. I'm very excited about seeing the results because hopefully it will inform staff practices and how we do outreach with the community. So yeah, thank you to the committee for all their hard work in putting the survey together and to city staff as well for helping guide some of the conversations and the questions that we're asking the community. And very excited to see what we come up with.
Thank you so much. Any questions for the committee? For the ad hoc committee?
What languages was the survey offered in? I don't.
English, Spanish, and Mandarin. Yes.
And have you had a good showing of all languages so far, or are we waiting for the data to come in?
I think that's a
I can respond, committee member, with the number of responses we've received. We've received on the questionnaire specifically, so this doesn't include interviews that the individual ad hoc committee members have done. 0 responses in Mandarin Chinese, 6 responses in Spanish, and 8 responses in English, which is a decent response rate given that we're looking for in-depth feedback. And they're open-ended questions, not multiple choice.
Cool, thank you.
And just to add on to that too, on our survey, there is a name portion that you can insert. It is optional. The only reason we inserted it was just to make sure if there's an item that you would like city staff to address, they would want someone to follow up with. So, yeah, but again, it's optional. You don't have to fill it in if you don't want to. Any other questions for the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Know Your Rights Ad Hoc Committee. The Know Your Rights Ad Hoc Committee will present an oral update. No action will be taken on this time. So yeah, we just met yesterday. It was a very awesome meeting. We're going to be reaching out to key partners over the upcoming weeks to possibly meet on Unison about what this event would look like and whether or not it would be better in person or virtually, depending on what the residents are serving would be better served by, right? And also like just being aware of the climate we're in. So yeah, we're hoping to complete these objectives or the event before the end of the fiscal year. So we'll be meeting regularly in order to accomplish that. And I don't think I'm forgetting anything else, am I? No. Okay, so I now open it up for questions from the committee, if any. Oh, I think you got. All right. Seeing none, we'll move to new business. Item 6.1, Rapid Response Network in Santa Clara County. The committee will now receive a presentation on this item from Mariana Jarro, manager of the Rapid Response Network in the County of Santa Clara. No action will be taken on this item. Mariana.
Should I sit here, stand there, or right there?
We're-
Your preference. Okay. I'll sit here. Hi, everyone. I was invited today just to provide some kind of updates so that you all also have a better understanding of what Rapid Response Network is, how we can help the Mountain View community, and also what are we seeing on the ground when it comes to ICE enforcement and those threats to our community. So I'll first run through what is Rapid Response, and then I'll share a bit about what we're seeing kind of in the day-to-day. And if at any point there's just questions or anything, let me know and we can pause before we move on, because it will kind of be a lot. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming when we talk about our work in Rapid Response, so I'm used to that, and we could definitely pause. So first, Rapid Response Network in our county, we serve the whole county of Santa Clara. We are funded by the county, and we're also funded by the city of San Jose, and we do have some small but some private funds. But our main funders are the county and the city of San Jose. Rapid Response Network currently is 10 nonprofit organizations. I always like to start off by kind of listing them. It's Catholic Charities, it's Step Forward Foundation, Human Agenda, Caras, Amigos de Guadalupe, Pangea, Siren, Luna, PARS, and Asian Law Alliance. These are the 10 nonprofit organizations that provide the Rapid Response Network services and are part of the governing body for Rapid Response Network. We do have a collective governance structure, so there's not one lead organization in Rapid Response or one lead person. It's a collective. We guide strategy and make decisions together. So we also do have one directly impacted community group. This is a group of organizers and they're from across the county. They're called Papeles para Todos. They also form part of our steering committee is what we call it, so that we have impacted community voices in the room leading our work as well. So at a base overview, the Rapid Response Network provides a 24/7 hotline, which is the yellow cards that I'm sure you guys have seen in many spaces. And through that hotline, we provide our services. So that's the entry point to all of our services. That includes rapid responders. Mountain View, we actually have, we like to say, our best rapid responders. We do have an active group in Mountain View that is really quick at responding. They're very quick at verifying and doing all of that work for us. And I'll share a bit more about what the rapid responders do in a bit, but emergency and urgent legal services. So whenever a Santa Clara County resident is detained, the mission of Rapid Response is that if the family calls our hotline and it reports that, every single Santa Clara County resident will receive at a minimum a consultation from an attorney. Those first 48 hours that they were detained by immigration. The core goal is to, if there is bond that can be requested, if there's a habeas motion that can be filed to get them out of detention, our attorneys do that. So the goal is to get Santa Clara County residents out of detention when possible. And also to stop deportations that might be expedited. Sometimes our immigrant community members are subject to expedited removal under various rules, and an attorney can attempt to file a motion to stop that and to file some sort of relief for the person. So those are the basic goals of our responses. Answer immediately to those calls so that no Santa Clara County resident falls through the cracks and doesn't have immediate counsel for those immediate relief options. We don't take on each case to represent them long-term. Immigration cases, especially in detention, they can take months or even years. So someone might be detained for years, for months and maybe up into a couple of years until their status is, figured out. So we don't commit to that because our whole model is emergency. It's how can we stop the immediate deportation of someone to avoid the family being split immediately? And how can we file something to get this person out of detention so that they can be with their family while they determine their immigration status? So that's the main goal of Rapid Response. And that's what we do through our emergency and urgent legal services. When someone calls us that their loved one was taken that same day, we have attorneys on call that drop everything and immediately start representing that person in front of ICE. So that's sort of the model that we run. For outreach and education, we do Know Your Rights presentations in English and Spanish. We're working towards, in January, we're going to start offering those presentations as well in Tagalog. We'll have someone on full-time staff to be able to do that. So we do those presentations as well. We also know Rapid Response is very specific in the role that we play because we're interacting with immigration every day. And we're interacting with what is new and what is happening now. So the Know Your Rights presentations that we provide, we know a lot of groups provide them as well, but ours also include how can Rapid Response help you and what is happening today? Who is at risk today? Because it changes every day. I mean, even with what we saw last week with the violence in DC, this week we've seen our Afghan community members being targeted, and we can quickly shift and we can know how to what information to tell community for how to be safe. So that's what we do in our outreach is we incorporate Know Your Rights and also what is happening now in our county, because what's happening here is very different from what's happening in Chicago, from what's happening even in San Francisco. It could look very different. We also provide family support. So what that means is when a family goes through our legal services because their loved one was taken, we do have a case manager on staff full-time who then is tasked with helping the family stabilize, is getting them through social services that they may need, whether it's applying for Medi-Cal now, whether it's finding childcare, low-cost childcare, when it's also finding, helping the parent that is left build a resume, find jobs. And we do have emergency financial assistance that we can provide to those families too. What we've done in this last year is oftentimes the family member left behind was the caretaker. So taking care of the children, not the one that was employed. And they don't have access to the bank account for their partner because they were never added, and that the banks are very complicated and it takes a long time to figure that out. So they don't have money to pay their rent. So we've been able to provide emergency rental assistance to those families in that emergency situation. Now, we know that there's HPS in our county, right? Those rental assistance programs through the county of Santa Clara. We also help the families apply through those programs for long-term assistance, knowing that the rapid response financial assistance is very limited because it is coming out of donations that we get. So we do try to help them also get them through social service programs for long-term. We also do accompaniment. Accompaniment is when our responders are accompanying someone to their ICE check-in. ICE check-ins are one of the main places that people are being detained. So that way someone doesn't go alone, and the goal is hopefully it will deter ICE to see that, hey, someone's waiting for this person, so they might not be such an easy target. And we do strongly think that that has worked in our favor because we've seen cases where the person should have been detained based on their demographic and their story. But with one of our allies sitting with them, they were let go. So we do think there's power in ICE seeing someone with them, and these are allies. It's usually our folks that are not impacted that are there. We also accompany people to court dates, immigration court hearings, and criminal court hearings. This year so far, we've confirmed one instance where ICE did detain someone in the San Jose Hall of Justice, waiting for them after their hearing. So we have started also offering that service because we want to make sure that people can be responsible and go to what they need to go to without fear that immigration might be hanging around waiting for them. So that is a basic overview of all the work that we do. And I'll touch a bit more about like what we've actually been seeing. But before we go there, we always show this slide, like what does rapid response look like in solidarity and numbers? Our team has trained in 2025 over 4,000 people as responders. Not everyone ends up registering at the end of those trainings because they have children and it's harder for them to commit because maybe they don't, they're moving or they don't live here anymore, or they only work here and they might not have the time. So not everyone ends up committing. So that's why we see a smaller number of currently registered, but we do have 1,600 currently registered responders. Mountain View has a great response team. I don't think we've ever had an alert in Mountain View where we're panicking, figuring out who's gonna go because our responders are quick to act. So it's one of the cities that we have the best response in. We do have currently 13 active patrol teams. So with our responders, we have organized patrols where we know that across the country and even in California, Home Depots have been used to target day laborers, and ICE would just show up and start picking people up. So we do have consistent patrols at all the Home Depots in Santa Clara County. There's 13 of them, and we have people patrolling them. From like the earliest is 6 a.m. shift, 6 a.m. and then the latest I think is like 4 p.m. because that's when there's no more people around. So we did start those patrols back in September, and they're still active. Even though we haven't seen any raid, we're still going because we would rather be safe than sorry, right? And that is with our responders who have committed to do that extra work. We have this year so far, I've had to add a plus because today there was a couple of arrests. So 170 residents plus have been detained and we've provided service to. We know that not everyone detained will call rapid response. We know that they might not know that we exist. Or they might not need our service because some people could afford a private attorney, so they just go that route. So we know this number is not the whole picture of how many people have been detained in our county, but it is at least we're hoping it's a significant snapshot of most of the people that have been detained. So that's that number. And then we have worked, we have really focused on seeing what's happening across the country in other cities. When raids are happening, they're happening in public spaces. They're happening at a shopping center. They're happening in front of at a market, in front of a school. They're happening in spaces. They're not really going into neighborhoods so much. They're going into those public spaces because their intent is to go and do damage and leave. So we have focused heavily on investing time to build relationships with businesses and schools. We've really focused on areas that we know have larger immigrant communities. So East San Jose, for example, is a big area that we know could be heavily impacted. And we have provided 450 plus businesses and schools trainings. And along with the trainings, they have committed to display rapid response cards, posters, know your rights cards at their businesses and schools. So hopefully, probably not in these businesses near here, but if you're ever in an area that might be heavily impacted, hopefully you do see those cards, because that's one of the big goals is just getting the hotline information out so that people know who to call when they need the help. I will say that compared to the beginning of the year, we get a lot more calls and people, it's very clear to us that it has worked to that outreach, since it does, we do get more of those calls and more of those requests for help. Like I said, our work is activated through the hotline. So this is just like a little graphic that shows how it works. A call comes into the hotline. There's 3 scenarios that our team would be activated in. We also want to always remind people that don't call our hotline for general information. Sometimes we get people calling and they think that they're talking to, I answered the call the other day and, oh, I would need help renewing my Medi-Cal. I'm like, here's somewhere else you can call. You know, this is rapid response. This is what we do. We also always answer and we say this rapid response emergency line, how can I help you? To try to remind people this is an emergency line. So these are the scenarios in which we would actually be able to provide service. And we hope people only call us for those things. So reporting suspected ICE activity, and that's when our responders are activated. Reporting detention of a resident, that's when the attorneys are activated, and so is family support. And then if someone has an upcoming ICE check-in or hearing, that's when accompaniment is activated. So those are the pieces and those are the services that we provide, emphasizing that it starts with the call to the hotline, call, not text. We don't review text consistently, so we could miss if someone's asking for something through a text. A lot of people like to DM us on socials. We keep telling people stop, please, because we don't have staff to monitor those spaces 24/7, but we do have staff to answer calls 24/7. So just consistently reminding people it's a call that needs to happen. And then this is just some like snapshots of ICE activity that we've seen in our counties thus far. In Mountain View, we haven't seen ICE in our neighborhoods. Now we do know there have been Mountain View residents impacted, have been detained, but they've been detained either at an ICE check-in or an immigration court hearing, not in front of their home, not in their neighborhood. Really the neighborhood and the home detentions have only occurred in San Jose. And then we had one in Gilroy. But what it looks like is like those cars, they pull someone over as that person is leaving their home. These are usually pre-identified folks. So for some reason, they were flagged by immigration to be detained. It could be because they've had previous contact with immigration. It's because maybe they had some contact with the criminal courts, or because they are currently applying for some immigration relief. So it could be a variety of reasons. Fortunately, in our county, up until today, we've only had people detained who were targeted. We haven't had collateral arrests, which means that like ICE is looking for someone else and they happen to find X person, so they take them as well. We haven't seen that, but we know that that could quickly change the way that it is happening in other cities. And the way that immigration enforcement is currently working is they're putting all their efforts in one city at once. Because right now, the number of agents that they have for our whole region is not enough for them to do what they're doing in Chicago here. They just don't have enough agents and they don't have enough space. But, you know, once they bring in more agents from another city, the way that they're doing in other places, then they will have capacity and they will do it. So that's kind of what we're preparing for. And also know that we have seen a lot more enforcement, even with their limited capacity, than we did under Biden's whole administration. So they've still ramped up significantly. And we know that they're also supposed to be hiring a bunch of new agents starting January. So that could also change quickly for us. But I mean, this is what it looks like, targeted so far. Covering their faces, always. I think after January is when we saw the shift from that first photo on the top left, the little four, is January, late January, early February. They were still unmasked. They were wearing things that actually said like federal agent, or one of them had ICE in the front. But that was pre-February. And then after February, we saw a shift where now every single arrest, their faces are covered. So face masks is happening. Those other photos show those examples. The vests are not clearly indicating that they're federal agents. One of the agents, it's not zoomed in enough, but one of the agents in the picture with the three, with the faces covered, his vest just said police gang unit. And that's so misleading because we know we have a gang unit in all of our police departments and we know that they work undercover mostly. But his vest just said police gang unit and he was immigration enforcement. And that was an arrest where they arrested a man who had his children present, which is also very different. In the past immigration, when they saw children with the individual that they were targeting, they would give the person a notice to appear to their office in a couple of days and not arrest them in front of the children. This year, we've seen them arrest parents in front of their children. In that specific, where that photo came from, the children were under 5 years old. There was 3 of them, under 5, and they were alone with the agents for about an hour. And the agents were calling mom, threatening to take them to social services if she didn't get there quickly. She was working in Palo Alto, and this was San Jose. And the agents just sat there with the children, with no one else watching them. Children, masked men who we don't know who they are, right? And that's something that's so strikingly disturbing and different from other administrations, is the fact that this is now encouraged for them to do. So that's an example of what that looks like now. When they go out into arrest people, they're not driving vehicles that are marked. Their vehicles are unmarked. When we do see the marked vans that have the federal government license plates is when they're transferring people that were already arrested. But that usually happens like in the back of a Target or somewhere. It's not happening inside like neighborhoods. So they're not coming into our neighborhoods in their marked vans. So that's another reason why it's hard to tell when it's them. At least the masks helps us know that this is them. These are some other images. Just wanted to show some other examples of what it's looking like. Some of the vehicle examples that they've seen. I mean, clearly the Hyundai with the gray Hyundai up there, those 2 guys were not even wearing vests. They were just fully masked up, and that to me looked really creepy and scary. It does not look like law enforcement. And they were detaining people while dressed like that. Yeah, just some examples of those. I'll share Well, this is, one of the things we always tell folks is when we get a lot of calls and it's undercover police and it's undercover sheriffs. We've been building relationships with our police department. Chief Canfield has been a great person to be in contact with, has been great at if we ever get a call that sounds like it's probably police undercover, we can quickly check with Chief Canfield, for example, and he will confirm for us it's MVPD, it's not immigration. So we've been trying to build those relationships so that we can minimize the number of alerts we send out responders to, knowing that most of the time it is local law enforcement that is undercover and people just don't know what to look for. We do a lot of community education to show them like what undercover local law enforcement looks like compared to ICE. The two images on the left show our local that was SJPD undercover compared to ICE undercover. What it looks like. Clearly, for example, the two gang unit vests are very different. One has a star badge. And our SJPD and all of our PDs, when they're undercover, they have a badge on them somewhere. And if you ask them who they're with, they will tell you. And immigration will not. They will refuse to answer questions. They will cover their faces and they will not have a badge on them. So we're working on providing that education so community know what to look for. And we also know that when we see law enforcement, our impacted community they're not going to look for those signs. They're going to be afraid and they're going to leave. And they should do those steps, leave if they're concerned. So that's what our responders are there for, to help confirm and verify. And even the two bottom pictures, the vests both said police. However, San Jose Police say San Jose Police. Immigration, we haven't run into this and we don't think we ever will because that's a whole other legal issue that they're going to run into. But they don't claim cities on their vests. So for example, they will say police gang unit, but it's not going to say San Jose Police Gang Unit. The way that San Jose Police Gang Unit usually does say San Jose Police. So we're also giving that feedback to our local law enforcement so that we encourage them to use vests that clearly say their city. So that's another way for folks to tell who is who. And then just some context for like what is the fear looking like? What is the need looking like? In its launch year, Rapid Response was created during the first Trump administration. That year, 1,600 calls were received by the hotline. This year, in the first 9 months of 2025, we've reached double the volume of those calls from the first administration. So we know we're dealing with a whole new threat because the way that things are being done this time around are very different. From the first administration was a lot of threats, a lot of less mass enforcement, and now we're seeing more mass enforcement. And even in June alone, we received 968 calls in that month, nearly 1,000 calls in a single month. June 2025 is when immigration began the raids in the LA area. That is when things started. And clearly our community up here, we weren't seeing it, but people were on edge. People are still on edge whenever there's raids in our neighboring cities, neighboring states. People are on edge and they're just waiting for that to happen. And they're calling our hotline more. They're reporting more local law enforcement. They are asking more questions. And we also are seeing more detentions, more arrests. Just, briefly, I do want to highlight that our hotline is 24/7. I have picked up calls at 3 a.m. at 11 p.m. So we are available 24/7. We do have dispatchers that are all bilingual English and Spanish. And we have a language interpretation line. So when we do have callers that only speak Vietnamese, when we have callers that only speak Farsi, we are able to still communicate with them. And we want to make sure that people know that any language we will respond to. So that is something that we've really invested a lot of time and energy into this year. We also know that from all of the reports about suspected ICE activity in the first quarter of this fiscal year, which is July through the end of September. So those 3 months, we had 146 reports of suspected ICE activity to our hotline. That means we responded 146 times. Only 4% was actually immigration. So again, people are on edge. Any law enforcement just, scares folks. There's also a lot of misinformation on social media that we have to combat every day, pretty much, where someone will post a rumor and then now we're getting a bunch of calls and we show up to the location and there's nothing. It's quiet. We talk to the people around there. They have not seen anything all day. So we're also trying to work on reminding folks the dangers of social media. Anyone can post anything for views and it doesn't mean it's true. In July, we had a really big rumor spread that supposedly immigration was going to do raids in Willow Street in San Jose businesses, which there's a lot of immigrant-owned businesses on that street. And someone started this rumor on social media, it got traction, and businesses closed for like 2-3 days. Our team was out there. We were telling people there's no presence right now. We had to remind people that these are just rumors. ICE is not going to give anyone a heads up where they're going to do a raid. So when we see something online that raids are coming to Mountain View in December 10th, whatever, I can put that up right now. It will probably go viral within the community. And there's no actual there's no backing in that. Immigration's not going to give anyone a heads up when they do plan an operation like that. And we keep reminding folks about that. And we also know there's just a lot of fear and concern. So we're trying to combat that with a lot of outreach and education. And it was new for us in this first quarter where we did recruit and train 145 responders to provide that accompaniment that I mentioned. So we trained from our already trained responders to do the specific tasks, since we have over 1,600, so we have the people power to do it. We accompanied 18 Santa Clara County residents in their immigration processes in the first quarter. All of them were walked away. No detention occurred. And then these are a lot of pie charts. Sorry about that. But for our legal response, so we understand who's being targeted. The nationality of people detained in the first 3 months of our residents, 56% were Colombian, followed by Mexico, and then El Salvador, India, Vietnam, and some other countries, but 56% were from Colombia. Now, that also tells us a lot about our immigrant community in our county. In the last 5-6 years, we've seen an influx of asylum seekers. And the majority of those asylum seekers, at least in our county, are Colombian nationals. And it's very clear that that is the makeup of our community now, of who's at risk from this data is, and because when you're an asylum seeker, you're already in immigration's eye, because you're going through an immigration process. So asylum is a process, simply put, you're asking the country for asylum and you agree to be in the country with a work permit and with permission while that case is resolved by an immigration judge. It does not mean you have legal status. It just means that you have been not officially paroled in, but you are awaiting a decision from an immigration judge. Now, because Colombians make up the biggest group of folks that are in that proceeding, they just happen to be the biggest group of folks detained. We know that a lot of people I think ISAP, so ISAP office is where people are required to check in. People that are in some sort of immigration proceeding are required to show that they're physically still here and complying with the rules to be here. 25% of the arrests in the first 3 months were at this office. These are people that are complying. These are people that should not have been detained because they have been granted some sort of permission to be here. Similarly, in that SF Immigration Courthouse, which is where all of our Bay Area residents were in proceedings, there's only San Francisco courts, and then there's another court in Stockton. I think Stockton has one, but most are San Francisco. 41% of the arrests occurred at the courthouse. And what happens at the courthouse is someone is going in for their asylum hearing, and their first hearing, they're just presenting themselves to the judge to tell the judge that they're still here and they're still applying. And what the government is doing is the government is showing up as opposing counsel and asking judges to end the cases before they even start, and so that they could detain people. Now, most of the judges have not allowed those motions. They have not they have not allowed them. However, the government is then creating allegations to justify detaining these people while their case is still pending. So essentially, you're tricking people, go to your immigration court hearing because you have to, and we're going to try to get your case thrown out, and we're going to detain you if we're not successful. We're still going to detain you while your court case is completed. Now, that could take weeks, it could take months, but also when someone is detained, it's then expedited. So it's a strategy for the government to pressure people into accepting deportation. What we hear from community members all the time is they don't want to be in that prison. And it makes sense. You don't want to be in a prison. It's literally a prison. So the government is forcing people's hands to say, to sign that auto deportation. So people are not even waiting until the end of their cases because they just don't want to be in a prison. So it's a strategy for the government to pressure, to break people. It's a strategy to detain people and to deport them. And it's one that is violating their right to their asylum hearings. So that's sort of what we're seeing. So the 41 and the 25%, that's where most of the arrests have occurred. Immigration courthouse, the ICE check-in office in San Jose, and also some of our residents do check in at San Francisco's office for whatever reason. So that makes up most of the arrests. So these are people that are in proceedings that should be allowed to be in the country. Now, 12% of the arrests in the first 3 months occurred outside people's homes, meaning that ICE had an arrest warrant for them and waited for them outside their home. So that's a very tiny number of people compared to everyone else that's being detained. To highlight also, most of the residents that have been detained in the first 3 months were from San Jose, 59%, followed by Sunnyvale being our second highest city where people that were residing there were detained. And then Gilroy and Santa Clara. I think Mountain View is one of those smaller little bars. Sunnyvale is close enough. Sunnyvale is the second most impacted city. And it also just depends on where our community is mostly migrating to, right? And it's where people have settled in. Yeah. So that's some basic data. It's a lot of data. Oh, that one's all very nice. Yeah. So rapid responders, these are allies, US citizens that volunteer. They volunteer to, whenever we get a call to the hotline, we activate the specific group. We're not sending it to everyone. We separate by region. For example, East San Jose is its own group because San Jose is huge. Mountain View is its own group. Mountain View is small enough that people can get to point A to point B quickly. So for example, if we get a call for Mountain View, we will send a message to the Mountain View response group. And then they will let us know who's on their way, and we communicate with them. The goal is to verify, observe, and report. So first verifying, is it immigration? Is it not? Observing if it is immigration, what are they doing? Keep an eye on them. Document. They continue to violate people's rights, and it doesn't feel like things are working, but as much as we can document and help with these lawsuits, then we're hoping that it will eventually start working. And then also just reporting to the community to let them know when there is like a widespread rumor or there is confirmed ICE arrest or activity. We do post it on our social media accounts. Right now, that's sort of the only place that we're doing that, social media. We are currently working on a text alert system that people will be able to sign up for. And when we do have confirmed activity and presence, they will get that text. The goal for that text system is mostly for raids. If raids start happening, we want to be able to get the word out quickly. And then I kind of already walked through this, but just a graphic on how it works. Community calls the hotline. Our dispatch, we use Signal, so they will send the message through Signal. Responders then let us know that they are available and on the way. And then we communicate with the responders during the time of the alert to get information and close it out. So that is pretty much all for me. Happy to answer questions as needed.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Eric,
So, give me
I
a
have a
quick second,
question.
Joan. I just have to recite this before I open it up to committee member questions. So seeing I open it to public comment, but seeing that there's no one present, and is there anyone online? Okay, perfect. I now move it to committee member questions. So Joan.
okay. Do we have any awareness of whether warrants have been served to people? Or are most of the arrests or detainments warrantless?
So the majority have been warrantless. So for immigration, to detain someone, well, now rules have changed with the Supreme Court's decision, but usually they need a warrant for arrest that is given to them from the Department of Homeland Security, but that only allows them to arrest someone in a public space. So it doesn't give them permission to go into someone's home. In a public space, they can't use those warrants, and it's as simple as they send a name to a supervisor and the supervisor sends it back to them signed. So it's not like they're building an actual case or proving that the person is undocumented. It's a quick signature that they get from a supervisor. There has been instances and concerns of moments when they're talking to a community member, they're approaching someone because of their appearance. They ask them for their name, and as soon as they get the name, they send it to their supervisor via message to then create a warrant in that moment. So, I mean, the warrants don't really take a lot of work for them, and they don't prove anything except that they know the person's name. Now, a warrant to go into someone's house and arrest them because of their status, those are very hard for immigration to get because the judge has to agree that this person presents some national security risk. So we've seen those for like big drug, cartel members, things like that, or terrorist groups. In very rare occasions, we have not seen any of those in our county thus far. Yeah.
So thank you very much for that presentation. I have several questions, so I'm thinking maybe I'll just ask one or two and then we can kind of give others a chance to go around. My first question is, let's see here. Do you have any recommendations for resources for businesses? And what I mean by that is a small business that might want to be an ally, like for example, like I put some cards up at a coffee shop in downtown Mountain View that it's an independent shop, the owner is all into it. And just, I know that the owner would appreciate some understanding, like, is there a way that if there was a raid happening nearby, that we could declare like, hey, we're closed for a private function. Now this is a private space, and it's a lot harder for people to enter this private space. I'm just wondering, do you have recommendations for further learning on that topic?
Yeah, for sure. And when we do our outreach to businesses, that's kind of the strategy that we take is we start with those recommendations. So basically, first recommendation is for businesses to have clear signs before any ICE presence that designates that it's a private business, that they can refuse service and entry to anyone. So having those signs up, which most businesses usually do already, and also designating if anyone's concerned about employees, if there is like a kitchen area, if there's a break room, putting private signs and signs that say like authorized personnel only. Those signs, while immigration agents might still violate them, at least there's clear documentation that they violated the private business space. So that will help help someone maybe out of detention if a judge agrees that the arrest was conducted illegally. So those signs will be helpful if that happens. Now, when it comes to businesses shutting their doors when they know that there's immigration enforcement happening nearby, they're in their right to do that. You can shut your door and you can refuse entry to anyone. And that's, simple as a public space is only considered public when the door, you can easily access it without some sort of barrier. So for example, if an ICE agent can just pull the door and walk in, then it's a public space and they have some justification for why they entered. Now, if a space is locked, clearly they can't enter. So they walk away and they're not allowed to enter. So yes, businesses can shut their doors and that's enough of a protection for clients and for employees when there is immigration enforcement nearby. They don't have to justify it. They can just keep their door closed and we're closed for the day, right? It is important though to mention the risks. When someone is in a hot pursuit, we saw this happen. One specific case that we use as an example happened in medical, I think it's like a plastic surgery office in, I believe it was LA or one of those adjacent cities. It was SoCal for sure. Someone was being chased by immigration and they ran into the business. Now the business employees blocked access from immigration and they struggled with immigration. The government then charged those employees with obstruction. And those charges, they were reduced to like misdemeanors, but they were first filed as felony charges. But they were able to stick because ICE needs a warrant to enter a private space like a business when it's closed. Only if it's, so they need a warrant generally. A hot pursuit is an exception because they're chasing someone and they see the person run into the business. So a hot pursuit is an exception for warrants. Warrants are not needed when there's a hot pursuit. So an agent has the right to enter the business. So that's one of those situations where if someone does run into someone's business, they should know the risks. They could be charged with obstruction. And that's the only situation where it would be considered obstruction. Now, if ICE is just walking by and trying to enter their business because they see people inside, and the business doesn't open the door, that's not obstruction. Because you're closed, period. And cannot say that, it was a hard pursuit because there was no one specifically that they were chasing in. So there is that exception, which is a very unique, but it's all very possible if there's a raid. People might start trying to run into businesses. As long as the person's not already being chased by an officer, then they can run in and you can shut the door and that's fine. But if an officer's behind them trying to arrest them, then there are risks for the business owner or the employees.
Okay, so maybe walk in the line of being open to people coming in, but you don't say, hey, everybody, get in here, we'll hide you from ICE.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because if you yell that out, then
Yeah,
they
it's
will
not a good
charge you
look.
for obstruction. Yeah, so it's a fine line of people that are around you come in, welcome, we're gonna close the door. And not someone that's running away. It's gonna be a hard decision. It's
Right.
gonna be in the moment, whoever is at the door, right? But if you let that person in, then the agents are able to come in.
Thank you.
Did any other committee member have a question? Did you have another one, Vice Chair?
Yeah, I do. So something that I'm curious about, and this might be too detailed for tonight, but you mentioned the family support aspect of the RRN. You have a full-time case manager. Is it just one full-time case manager? Okay, so I'm guessing it's a lot of kind of triaging situations.
Yeah, and I will say not all families opt in to that service.
Okay.
Some families don't want the case management, but they might want some other resources, and it's kind of like a one-off
Got it.
service.
Okay, because I guess then this might not be as relevant yet, but I'm just wondering, I imagine a lot of that work is referral to other safety net services. Like, hey, you live in San Jose, here's the local organizations that if you're not already in touch with, you should get in touch with. I'm just wondering, have you had conversations about the impact of new strings attached from government funding for a lot of those local organizations? Like the government having new rules for like CDBG funding, saying that if you're gonna have government funding, then you have to check immigration status, things like that. That might be a bit,
Yeah.
looking down the line a bit, I'm just kind of curious, like, is that something that's on your radar or just you're, not there right now in terms of dealing with it?
I will say that most of our referrals were actually to county
Okay,
services,
Okay,
not really
interesting.
other organizations.
Okay.
Because what people need in those moments are access to mental health,
Mhm.
access to rental assistance, food benefits.
Mhm.
So those are like the immediate needs that we help people find, and that's usually with the county, it's usually with a health clinic. And it's not really, I think very few times we refer people to other to other nonprofits. Maybe when it comes to the rental assistance county programs, because those are through nonprofits. But then at the same time, those are county services that don't have those limitations, those restrictions.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I had 3 more small questions. Is that okay, guys?
Go for it.
Okay.
One afterwards. Go for it.
Okay, really quick one, just kind of summarizing in general badges, star, good, shield, bad in terms of you're trying to identify.
Star
Which
local
is-
law enforcement.
You're right, sorry, I
Star
apologize.
local law
In
enforcement.
terms of identifying,
Yes.
yeah, I apologize, that was the wrong wording. In terms of identifying,
Yes,
who you're
yeah,
looking at.
star, 5-star, a little 5-star is local law
local.
enforcement, our sheriffs and all of our PDs and highway patrol, they use that star shape. We'll say something different for each one, but it's a star. Now, all federal law enforcement officers use the badge, looks like a shield.
the shield,
Looks
okay.
like a shield with the eagle on top. So the shape is a really like quick tell. Do I see a star? If I see a star, then it's gonna be our local law enforcement. And we know our sanctuary policy, so
Yeah.
it should not be a risk to our immigrant community.
And that's really helpful, focusing outreach on identifying local law enforcement.
Yeah, and we always tell folks like local law enforcement, it's easier to identify is a local law enforcement versus is it it's easier to tell that it's local law enforcement because you can even ask them if you're someone who's in a, you know, you're not vulnerable, you're maybe you have status. You can ask a police officer, like if they're undercover, hey, what agency you're with? And most of our cops are, I think all of them, most of them are, will confirm, will let you know. They're all required to identify themselves. So they will identify themselves as Mountain View Police. They will show you a badge if needed. One thing that we tell responders always is when they tell you who they are, ask them for a badge. If they're not wearing it visibly, because we also don't want to run into situations where immigration starts saying that they're San Jose police.
Oh.
For example, we haven't seen that at all yet. But I don't know, maybe one of them goes rogue, right? So if they're not wearing any, if they're not wearing their vest, if they're not wearing their badge on them, which sometimes they don't, sometimes when they're prepping for an operation, or they're doing some kind of undercover work, they're not wearing their badge visibly. But if you ask them, we have not encountered any situation where they have declined to show us a badge. And if they don't have their badge, they will show us their police ID card, which will say the police and the badge number and everything. So it's another good practice is ask for a badge if you don't see one on them.
Got it. And then last one, I promise. You mentioned one of the things that the government would like people to do is take the elective deportation option. And like I've heard that advertised like on the radio station, which is incredibly depressing. I'm just wondering, has the RRN helped people with legal advice who are considering that option? And I'm just kind of wondering, has there been an uptake? Like, what's the trend there? Are people taking it?
I mean, more and more often, that's the decision people make.
Wow.
So our attorneys are dealing with, you know, they're providing the legal counsel, they're walking the family through, these are your options, this is what you can pursue. A lot of these folks have relief that they are eligible for, so they can fix their immigration status. But once they learn that it's gonna take weeks, maybe months, maybe a year in detention and in the conditions that they are in, a lot of these detention centers, they're not even sleeping on beds. So people ultimately decide, I want to be deported. And our attorneys have helped people with that process. Some people have also called us without being detained and they want to self-deport before getting detained. So that's also advice that our attorneys have been able to provide to people so that they can do it. Because also we want people, if they choose that option, they need to speak with an attorney, because if they have a pending immigration case and they just leave without letting the country know, then they might risk becoming ineligible in the future if they try to come back for an immigration relief.
Thank you.
Committee Member Smith.
Two real quick. Are there other response groups in other counties, or, and you know, do you guys have connections with them, or are you guys pretty much individually for your counties?
We do have a regional group where we coordinate. There are rapid response networks for all Bay Area counties. And we're all generally the same, a little different here and there. I will say it also depends on the resources that we each have. Santa Clara County, we do have the most resources financially. So we do have the most robust rapid response. We do offer, I mean, everything that I listed, not all other rapid response networks offer that. They don't have the capacity. So we do have regional coordination. We have a signal thread where every day we're in communication of what's happening in other places. Even just, it's important for us to be in touch consistently with San Francisco, since the courthouse, immigration courthouses are there, so that when our residents are detained, they then refer them to us when they get the information that we don't. So we do have regional coordination. We are also preparing regionally. If we do start seeing raids regionally, it's the same way it happened in LA. It hit LA and then it hit the smaller cities around. So we know that that's the way it's going to be in our area as well. So maybe they'll target SF for Oakland first, or maybe San Jose because of the Super Bowl, right? And then our other cities will also be impacted. So we are working on coordinating our efforts so that we have a stronger response together if and when that happens.
The last one is this not impersonating a police officer as long as they don't put the city name on it?
Yeah.
Because I was always told I couldn't do that because it was against the law. But if I can do this, I'm like, this opens options for me.
It's a great I mean, it's something that we struggle with every day because a lot of these things are just flat out illegal.
Okay, we are like,
They are flat out illegal.
but somehow they're saying like, I'm not saying a city, so it's.
Yeah, and we also know that Attorney General is not going to charge. The Department of Justice is not going to put a stop or charge immigration agents. And where we haven't reached the point yet is our cities going to do that. So that's a whole other, if the cities and states want to start doing that, it's going to open a can of worms of like, what is federal, local, who has authority where. Whenever there's an incident with any federal agent, the way that it works with federal agencies is they're taken, the issue is taken to the Department of Justice.
Okay, and then, so, I don't know, I know it just dropped recently, so I don't know if you'll know the answer to this one, but the state just opened a complaint line or
Yeah.
report line and that kind of stuff, and do you think that would fall under something to report, or under
Yeah,
their qualifications of, illegal or bad behavior?
with the Attorney General, California Attorney General's office, Rapid Response Networks have been meeting with them for months. We've been giving them all the legal information up until the point of creating this portal was to get community members to also start sending in things that we don't capture. But we have, since the start of the year, been feeding information towards our Attorney General. Now, the issue becomes when and how will they actually charge
Okay.
these agents? And there's a lot of, again, it's politics at the end of the day, is will our state, they're saying we have this portal now, we've also been feeding them information for weeks, for months. When will they actually do something? And that's sort of what we're waiting for, right? When will they actually take that step? That will obviously kind of have a trickle effect on relationships with the federal, at the federal level, which, I mean, are not good anyway, so they should just take the bullet.
Thank you. Any other questions for the committee?
Yeah.
Oh, committee member Lester.
Thank you for the great presentation. It's good to get regular updates on like what this activity is looking like. And I think one of the questions that I had actually relates to the public versus private spaces. So the city of San Jose and Santa Clara County recently passed ordinances that are keeping immigration officers off of city and county owned. I don't know if it's property or if it's specifically they can't enter those buildings, even though they are technically public spaces. And I was just wondering, do the same rules apply if it were a business as it would a government building under those ordinances?
So government buildings, under those ordinances, it should apply the same rules. I mean, we saw examples when they were in Chicago where Chicago PD was able to block access from their, police station to the officers. They just wanted to use the restrooms, but they were still able to deny access. Now, I think ultimately what becomes the question is, does everyone in the government, county buildings and the San Jose buildings agree? Because an exception to ICE entering a private space is if they have a warrant or if someone lets them in, someone with authority lets them in. So if you have a security guard at the county building, let them in. A security guard has authority in the building. So ICE could walk in and they could justify because that person granted access to them. That's some of the complexities of when our governments pass certain ordinances. something that I always struggle with is it's great. And also that's implying that everyone that works for you agrees to follow this policy, right? Some people have different politic views. Some people, right? So we can't, I mean, a city and a county can't, force anyone to follow that. They might have face consequences after the fact, but it will be after the fact, right?
And then my second question was kind of relating, I guess, with hundreds of thousands of people coming here for FIFA, for the Super Bowl, how is the Rapid Response Network preparing for what will likely be it could be one day where there's like 150 million calls because there's, agents that are stationed outside these events.
And it's we're working on practicing, preparing, because inevitably there will be DHS agents. That's normal when it comes to large scale events. DHS actually is the partner for the city of Santa Clara for the Levi Stadium. So they've always had that relationship, and there's always been DHS agents present at Levi Stadium. We actually yesterday, we had an alert in San Jose. DHS agents and the sheriff's office were training at the Derridon station downtown. Now, what we know is, again, DHS will be present. They're gonna bring in more officers. They will be at our stations, at our, they will be in our spaces, simply put. Now, what we keep hearing and what we heard yesterday when we were talking to those officers, we're not here to do immigration enforcement. However, that can change. You work for the Department of Homeland Security, so at the end of the day, you can do immigration enforcement. One of the things that we're going to have to figure out, and we're still working on, is we're launching a campaign in January, starting January 1st, educational campaign of what is DHS, because I think that will also just help people understand better. One of the comments that we received when we shared about the Derridon training that DHS was doing with Sheriff's Office from community members was, isn't this violating sanctuary policy? And we have to remind people, sanctuary policy applies to immigration enforcement, but DHS has different umbrellas. It has TSA, which TSA is mainly going to be the one involved in the security for those events. And it has these other parts to it that they might assist with immigration enforcement, but that's not their principal objective. So we're launching a campaign through our socials, and we're working with news stations in Spanish and English to do some segments starting January up until the Super Bowl and even after the fact for the World Cup, to try to educate community of what to look for, when to call rapid response. Don't call us if they're just walking around the stadium. Call us if you see them trying to arrest someone because of their immigration status, right? Call us when that's happening, but we know that we're probably gonna get a lot of calls of people just inside the stadium like, oh, they're here. Yes, they will be there. And so we're trying to tell people they will. And call us when this happens, and that's when we will respond. It's also conversations that we are having with the stadium, conversations about, can we have space for responders to be in the stadium? And also, if they don't agree to it, ultimately, then responders, who's going to the World Cup? And while you're there enjoying yourself, can you also be our eyes, right? So it's going to be complicated. It's going to be very heavy those few months. And also December 5th, just tomorrow, they announce what countries will be playing in what cities. So tomorrow we're going to also have a better idea. If we see mostly European countries, we think the risk is going to be much less. But if we see countries from Latin America, from Africa, or from Asia, that's where we're going to have to really prepare. And we're also working on, once those come out tomorrow, let's prepare, ensuring that we have any posts that we make in those days, in those months, or in those languages as well. Currently, our capacity is English and Spanish for like our communications, and we're working towards building so that when the countries come out tomorrow, if there's, if a putting down the countries that play, but like if Brazil plays,
Mhm.
we'll invest in Portuguese, right? So that's some of the strategies that we're thinking of. It is going to be a lot. It's gonna be a lot.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a busy year for our area, for San Jose, for all of our cities. That are obviously gonna get people coming into our hotels, people coming into our restaurants and such. But we will do our best to focus on the immigration enforcement and not necessarily on DHS agents just walking around the bus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Luster. Just a few questions. Thank you again for your presentation, Mariana. And thank you again for the rapid response showing up for Dia de los Muertos. We heard from a lot of community members how it was a stressful day, but seeing responders there just canvassing the area brought a lot of comfort and just a sense of security for them, just knowing that there was an agency out there for them. Just a quick question. So within the network, is it only people who are in why did I just lose the word right now? Or at risk that can call the network, or can any other resident call the network to report an ICE sighting?
Anyone. Most of our reports about ICE sittings come from non-impacted folks. Anyone can call. Obviously, we only limit service when it comes to the legal service, like that is for people that were detained within 72 hours and were detained by ICE. Sometimes we get calls from people whose loved ones were taken by like local law enforcement, and we do just let them know this is immigration related. Public defenders are there. That's the only moment when we would restrict, and the caller calling in to report and ask for the help does not matter their status, does not matter who they are, as long as that the person that they're speaking for is a Santa Clara County resident. We do verify addresses, because we also just don't have capacity to help people outside of our county. So we do verify residents.
Perfect. And so thank you again also for differentiating between like an administrative warrant as well as a judicial warrant. Are there things that you see? We've just got to witness kind of a sample this year of what this administration can do and the harm it can cause to our communities. Are there other potential things that like the rapid response are preparing for that we, not only as a city, but as commissioners, committee members, can start sharing amongst the communities that we are connected with?
One of the things that this administration did quickly was expanded who is a priority for immigration enforcement and where will they do immigration enforcement. I think we all saw early in the year where they removed the safe zone designations for schools, for churches, hospitals. Actually, El Camino's here in Mountain View. We had earlier in the year a Sunnyvale resident being treated in a Mountain View hospital, right? And immigration blocking access to the family and to the attorney. Now, actually meeting with them tomorrow, the hospital. But one of the things that we're consistently trying to learn from the hospital systems and also push them is and we've seen already 4 hospitalizations this year, and we will probably see more and more and more. When ICE shows up with someone who has been harmed because of their arrest, will the hospitals give access to our attorneys? Will the hospital give access to the family? At the end of the day, the person, once they're in the hospital, they are a patient. So it's not the same as if someone who was in a jail is being brought in. It's not the same process. This person has just been picked up by immigration. They haven't even been processed by immigration. So they're technically not in custody fully at that point. And that's when they're being brought into the hospitals. So it's a larger conversation about will our healthcare systems allow people the dignity of having their family with them, of having their lawyers with them. And I think that's a much larger monster that we need to tackle. And it's something that we want to we need help pushing hospitals on. El Camino being one of them that did not do a good job the first time that they had the incident. They did a pretty bad job. And recognizing that also some of these hospitals are private systems, but at the end, hoping that our government entities can help push these private entities, right? So that's one of them, is we know that the hospitalizations will just continue.
Mhm.
And it's important for us to have those conversations ahead of time of what is your response going to be? You need to allow family, you need to allow a lawyer to speak with the client. And then also, one of the things that we're consistently seeing is immigration is changing every day. Policies are changing every day. And people's statuses are being revoked.
Mhm.
TPS was ended for some countries earlier this year, meaning people then became undocumented. We know that our Afghan community members are being targeted now. We saw 5 people picked up Monday from Afghanistan, and newly targeted Venezuelans as well were on that list of undesirable countries that the president put out. So also just helping the message of stay up to date on your status. You cannot emphasize it enough to people, is it is a responsibility that you need help with yourself to know, has my status ended? Because then you will understand what risk you have. And for example, we had a San Jose resident detained at the San Jose airport. She was inside waiting for her flight, and then agents approached her and took her. She did not know that she had been granted a removal order because she missed a court hearing. She didn't know that the court hearing was pushed up, and she didn't know that she missed it. Now, our messaging then becomes, you need to check these things. You need to be up to date. I didn't know was not an excuse, especially when it comes to immigration court. There is portals where people can check that, and those are up to date. So emphasizing greatly, be up to date on your status. That's one of the best things you can do for yourself. And then consulting with attorneys as often as possible. We have seen an uptick in fraud, attorney fraud, notary fraud, where people are scamming people and contacting them via WhatsApp, claiming to be attorneys, and then people are paying them. So it's also really important that people are aware that they need to be very careful with the attorneys that they speak to, and trust attorneys that they can see, that they can be in front of, and that they can verify their bar license. So I think those are the things that, right now are most pressing, with, also DACA being up in the Supreme Court soon, with, I think that's another group that we have concerns of. If that status is terminated, now you're opening up hundreds of thousands of people more to be detained. And DACA, if you're not familiar with that program, these are our teachers, these are our doctors, these are our, community members. So it's very important to stay up to date as much as we can, and with reliable information. I so often hear from people, oh, I saw on TikTok that this new law passed. I'm like, no. No. TikTok is not a reliable source. So also, what sources are we using, right? TikTok's not one of them. Those TikTok lawyers are not trustworthy. Just, all of that information. I know that's a lot, but.
No, thank you for sharing that. And last question, is there anything, so I think a lot of the themes that have been coming up through conversation has been like this impending actions that the administration is gonna take, and ways that cities, or even especially the Rapid Response Network, the steps are taking in order to prepare themselves for that eventuality. Is there anything that you would like local elected officials, or even things that we can recommend to our local electeds on ways that they can support rapid response efforts, or even our local residents themselves?
One of the things that right now we're gonna start looking at is, the county's budget has been hit. Cuts are coming, and 99% of the rapid response budget is the county of Santa Clara. We don't, there's, we're very concerned of, will we have the same level of funding? And if we don't have the same level of funding, we're gonna have to cut back our services. And we're already scraping through, every dollar, we're using it as much as we can. And for example, our 24/7 hotline, we're not actually receiving the funding to sustain that, but we're making it work. Now, if we lose funding, we're gonna have to cut the 24/7 hotline. We're gonna maybe have to do a couple of hours. It's not sustainable for us. So one of the things that we're going to begin, our little advocacy project is we need cities to help and step in. City of San Jose is the only city investing in rapid response. City of Sunnyvale is the second most impacted. And there's zero investment. And we're not talking about, we don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars from each city. But if we get 50,000, if we get 100,000 from each city, then we're making up for what we might lose from the county. So that's one of the biggest things is with all of the county's budget cuts, we are very concerned about the sustainability of our efforts. And we are looking at, will cities be we need to meet with cities and see what investment they can have in rapid response. And also looking at the need for local law enforcement, which I think Mountain View is in a good position from conversations with Chief Canfield, but more outreach from local law enforcement to community. We in San Jose, we have a huge problem with just their relationship with our local law enforcement and community, and that distrust is just there. And that's just natural with community, distrust of law enforcement. Now what's going to happen if that grows and grows, people are going to stop reporting crimes. People are going to be more susceptible to abuses and such. So we really need our local law enforcement to invest more time in making meaningful connections with community. And that's not just making little videos with AI in Spanish, the way San Jose Police did. It's actually going out and talking to community, meeting them where they're at. So that's sort of what is definitely needed in the city. And but I will say that for rapid response, getting the messaging out of our hotline, be that being front and center of messaging, it's something that we work with the county to make sure that they're reminding people to call the hotline, call the hotline, call the hotline. As much as everyone can help get that messaging out there and those yellow cards, that's the greatest help we can receive. Second to helping us stay afloat. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mariana, for your presentation and your information. We truly appreciate it. All right, y'all. So moving on to item 7, committee member staff comments, questions, and committee member reports. No discussion or action will be taken on any questions raised by the committee at this time. State law prohibits the committee from discussing or acting on substantive non-agenda items. Would anyone like to make a comment? Member Sylvester.
Thank you very much. Well, tonight is actually my last night on HRC. Sorry, I'm just letting that visual comment sink in. After 7.5 years of amazing projects and community impact and friendships and connection, literally dozens and dozens of people, staff, the community, commissioners that have come and gone. I call them all friends now. I'm moving on, and I just want to express my gratitude and share a couple of thoughts here tonight with all of you, if I may. I've been very proud of the work the HRC has done over these 7.5 years and before that, giving voice to our community members who often don't have a voice or have less than a voice than they deserve. Some of the things I've worked on that have been really impactful to me were multi-year community-driven project on the history of housing. I'm really proud of it. both for the impact it made in the moment, but the fact that that research is still used by communities and cities. The research itself, but also the model that we did has been copied in cities around the Bay Area. So I'm very excited that that created a body of work that is reusable and impactful. I also really love the work we did a few years ago, this time of year, on the storytelling of our vehicle residents and safe parking, back when safe parking was very, very nascent in this community. Those storytelling essays actually helped Joe Smidian get us funding at the county level, so I was very proud of that. But it was also an honor to hear people's story and step into their lives and get to take time with them and see them for who they are and get to share that out with our community. I had people tell me after that project, you know, I thought those people, famous phrase, were X, right? Bad people, lazy people, whatever. And what you wrote changed my perspective. And I see that they're just people like me raising kids and have dogs and, you know, trying to make a life. So thank you for that. Right. So those are probably the two most impactful things I'll take with me forever. But I'll miss all of you, but I've already connected with all of you personally and in a million other community activities. So I'll just wish you all the best in what you do going forward in HRC. And remember, the most important part of HRC for its success is the community and friendships you build among each other. So with that, thank you all for everything, the community, the discussions, all of it. And to staff, thank you, Laurel and Michael, for all your hard work up with us through thick and thin. I'll miss you too.
Thank you so much, Committee Member Sylvester. Would anyone like to say anything for Committee Member Sylvester?
We'll miss you.
Thank you. But
It wasn't very much warning.
Surprise.
In shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really great working with you on the civic participation ad
Yeah.
hoc committee, and you know, you brought a lot of years of community perspective to this body, and yeah, I really appreciate all the work that you've done over the last 7.5 years, and yeah, wish you the best going forward.
I'll try to wrap up my part of that work, and I really look forward to seeing what you do with it, because that I guess that would be my third most impactful or favorite project on HRC, but I felt since I haven't quite finished my part, I can't quite count it yet. So look forward to see what happens with that.
Yes, thank you, Ida Rose. It's sad to see you go, but you know, we're grateful for the years of service, and I appreciate you kind of reflecting on the highlights of HRC, and I want to thank you personally for being my connection to join the HRC. I remember going to the History of Housing event. I forget why I ended up going, but I just thought it would be neat. And I was like, this is neat. And I was like, I asked how I could get more involved, and you said, oh, Human Relations Commission. And, you know,
Roped you
excuse me,
in.
committee. And you know, here I am. So thank you for that.
Oh, I'm really honored I could bring you in,
Yeah.
and at least a couple others of you that are here tonight.
Actually, the housing project was what brought me into.
Hey, nice.
And I was able to fill in a lot of gaps.
True.
And Mike can wove a wonderful tapestry with this one's urging and help to make it a really wonderful experience for
Thank you.
people who had just moved into Mountain View, as well as people who were born here and are my age, and almost nobody is around my age. So it really gave us a healthy and happy perspective of what Mountain View has been and is now.
Thank you for your contributions. You were one of our big interviews.
You said.
Oh,
It's okay, it's okay.
I'm not going
Yeah, no, now I get to go to your house. There's no limit of how many people can bother you.
I have never stopped you. You know where I live, so.
So,
You haven't been over, so just come on over.
so thank you so much, committee member Sylvester, for 7 awesome years under the HRC and the path you laid for many of the current and future members to onboard. I remember when Councilmember Ramirez was trying to get me into the HRC and I was being iffy about it, and then you met me for lunch
Remember
and
that?
taught me of all the things that the HRC is capable of doing and more. So I truly thank you from the bottom of my heart. What you've brought to this committee, the example you've laid out for all of us, and the exemplary committee member you've always been. So
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking that lunch with me.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm gonna miss you.
Don't miss me too much. I'll be here. I'll be everywhere.
There's gonna be another committee, right?
She'll be.
Yes, Parks and Rec, but I'm still doing lots of stuff. You'll see me, the tree lighting and,
They'll still be serving our community, so.
You'll be here
I'll be-
providing public comment every month.
oh, I hadn't thought about that yet. But yeah, I'll attend your meetings and bug you. Careful what you wish for. You said you missed me.
You'll come to our meetings with goodies.
I should.
Any other comments from the committee?
Christmas tree lighting on Monday. Rose mentioned it, but the
Yes.
city's holiday, I forget the actual title of it, but all the pretty lights turn on and there's gonna be Santa Claus. I'll be there. Come hang out.
I'll be there, I
Yeah.
promise.
I'm gonna try and get there early so my kid can get a good spot to meet Santa Claus.
Oh.
He doesn't know who he is, but that's okay.
So,
Soon.
one last thing, so committee member Lester and I went to the Youth Advisory Committee
Oh, yeah.
this past month, I want to say, right? It was Yak. It was interesting to hear that. It's like, what can Yak do for you? And we're like, Yak. It was but they're an awesome group of leaders, honestly. So many things we shared with them were like our perspectives of being able to do shared work amongst as committees, especially as we're doing our Know Your Rights ad hoc committee work that's starting now, and seeing what kind of fruitful endeavors that we can all bring about through through shared work. So anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, it was really great, and it was, I mean, I don't remember in high school being super inclined to be civically engaged locally, so it was really inspiring to see 30 kids sitting around a table and, you know, a couple of them leading a meeting, taking minutes, like understanding how the civic process works. And then I think we also gave them the opportunity to participate in our civic participation survey, which I hope we'll see responses from them. And so yeah, I'm really excited for the opportunity for cross collaboration and kind of creating that pathway to leadership, starting at that young critical age, and also getting that youth perspective into the work that we do as well. Because, you know, we try our best to represent as many voices as we can on here. And youth is one of those voices. So
100%.
yeah.
Thank you so much. And with that, I move us to item 8, adjournment. Adjourn to the next regular meeting of the Human Relations Committee scheduled for February 2026 at 6:30 p.m. in the Plaza Conference Room at Mountain View City Hall, virtually on Zoom. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Yeah.